I'm Logan Webb, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the three-time world champion, San Francisco Giants. With hosts Chad King and Eric Nathanson. This is Torture Cast.
It's Friday, November 15th, 2024, and this is episode 308 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. And hey, look, I know it's been a while. You know, some team won the World Series that we're not very happy about, shall we say. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit. Also, things happened last week that, you know, yeah, I had to get through. That was my fault. My problem.
Come on, let's go drink till we can't feel feelings anymore.
I mean, you know, I'm a bit of a wuss.
Then there's something wrong with you. You're certainly not very good.
Yeah. There's something wrong with me. Definitely. Anyway, the other voice you heard there was Eric Nathanson. I'm Chad King. How you doing, Eric?
All right. 100-degree days are finally gone here in Arizona.
Yeah.
So it's time to enjoy the nice weather right now. We're getting like 70-degree days. It's friggin' beautiful. So I'm in a good spot.
Good, man. Yeah, it's starting to change here too. We've had a little bit of rain. We had the heater on this morning. You get that, you know, stifling, musty scent from all the dust that's collected over the summer.
Yep.
in the furnace. So yeah, hasn't smelled great around here. But anyway, starting to change the seasons because we had hot weather just like 2 weeks ago, and now we're blending out here. We're getting back into the hell. My family made me decorate the inside for Christmas already, like 2 weeks ago or whatever, right after Halloween. It was unbelievable. So I refuse to do the outside yet. That's for sure. Not till after Thanksgiving.
It's time though, just about. I mean,
I don't want to broadcast our mental, problems. So,
but it creeps up fast. You know, like the older I get, every year, like Halloween ends and like Christmas is here in the blink of an eye. It's just unbelievable. But
it is fast. It's fast. I mean, look, we're already into the hot stove season now, and that's what we're going to try and catch up and talk about here. As I alluded to at the top of the show. Yes, the Los Angeles Dodgers finally won a real World Series, for those of you who cared about that. The 2020 series apparently not being real. Now you can't say anything about it because they finally won.
Yep.
And they did it, as far as we know, fair and square, and it sucks. But, look, they won the National League West, 11 out of 12 years. And, this is only their first/second World Series title. So their return is still not very good overall. While the Giants made the playoffs in 10, 12, 14, 16, and 21, and they won 3 World Series. So that isn't too bad. That's 3 out of 5.
I commend you on your positive spin on Giants fandom into that one. Those were some great gymnastics you just did.
I'm trying to bend over.
You really are hopping back and forth. That is
making myself feel better. I know. Because believe me, Dodger fans are on cloud 9 right now because aside from winning the World Series, which is huge and what every fan base wants to have happen to their team, the fact is the Dodgers are still much, much, much better than the San Francisco Giants. And going into next year, even with Buster Posey and a new GM and whoever they may or may not sign over the offseason, it's just really hard to compete with the Dodgers. Things have to systematically change over a long period of time. We're talking, 3, 4, 5 years. The Dodgers have to get worse, which they haven't seemed to have gotten worse over 12 years. And the Giants need to get a lot better. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at Shohei's locked in for 10 years, and they're going to continue to get more and more stars. That's just the way they roll, especially with the deferment from Yamamoto and Shohei and all that stuff. It feels unfair, but look, that's the world we live in right now. That's how baseball is constructed, so it is what it is. But the Giants did make a move a couple of weeks ago, and I know it's been a while since we recorded, but they hired, or Buster Posey, I should say, directly hired Zack Minasian. And he comes from 6 years working in the organization in the Giants system. Prior to that, he was with Milwaukee. And he becomes the 11th general manager in the San Francisco era. And I was looking at the list, and this is, of course, since 1958. And, the biggest chunk of time that, I was 23 to 43, 42, Brian Sabian, right? He was the GM for 20 years, 20 seasons. But everybody else on this list is basically 6 seasons or less. And the last few of them, Bobby Evans, 4 years. Scott Harris, 4 years, including COVID. And Pete Putila, 3 years. So it's been a bit of a shuffle for GMs lately. And, I also think that when Brian Sabian was the GM, he was basically the president of baseball operations, right? He was the guy. And now they have, kind of this intermediate, higher level, this president of baseball operations. So, before it was Farhan, and yes, he hired a GM, Pete Putila. Did you ever hear what Pete was doing?
No, it was Farhan.
Yeah.
Farhan. It was always so funny about it.
It was always Farhan because, we grew up with GMs. They were the ones who made the decisions. But now with the Giants, it's the president that makes those decisions. And so with Buster Posey taking over this role and him hiring the GM directly, it will be interesting to see how signings and trades will go on into the future. Again, I assume Buster Posey is going to be the one to okay everything.
I mean, he's got to be. The Giants management, the ownership group has obviously decided we're going to hand the keys to the car over to Buster Posey and see how he drives for a few years. I mean, he's in on every single decision. And like you say, though, it's different from Farhan because Farhan kind of overshadowed everything. Whereas I feel like we already feel like Buster is trying to include people and make it a group thing,
Yeah, so we'll see. That's what I'm curious about. I mean, he may have just as much, less, or even more say than Farhan did, but maybe the optics won't be as domineering, and maybe when they sign someone, Zack will be at the microphone instead of Buster, or Buster will be there on the side, that kind of thing. But, Farhan was always the guy announcing everything, talking to the media about everything.
Farhan's ego was gigantic. I mean, it was ridiculous about how he wanted it to be about him and how he built and this and that. Scott Harris and Pete Putila, like you said, they were just relegated to the background. But, Zack Minasian, I got to get that right. He will be. You're right. He'll be the guy at the mic for signings and stuff like that. It won't be Buster necessarily. Buster may be sitting there as well, but Zack might. He'll do the majority of the talking. It'll be a different boat now.
So he has a long tenure with the Brewers. He was with them for 14 years, and he did everything in baseball operations, minor league scouting, coordinator pro scouting, baseball operations assistant, yada, yada. He got his start, however. His dad was a visiting clubhouse attendant for the Texas Rangers from 1989 to 1993, I believe. And so he was a young kid growing up, basically helping cleaning up jocks and pants and cleats and doing all that stuff. And then they moved over to the home side and they were doing the Texas Rangers there. So he grew up around players. He said he used to play stickball with Ken Griffey Jr. and a bunch of other people. When he was being interviewed by Harold Reynolds, Harold remembered him when he was like a teenager or a young kid. And they used to play games together and all sorts of stuff because these were clubhouse attendants. He was a clubhouse attendant and he's worked his way up. He tells the story about how he was around 13 years old. And when his mom was giving him hitting tips, he realized he's not going to make it as a player in baseball. And so he said, but I love this game so much. And he wanted to find a way to stay in it. And he didn't, wasn't going to be a clubhouse attendant his whole life. So he really focused on the front office. And so this has been a goal of his since he was a teenager. He's in his 40s now. I don't know exactly how old he is, but yeah, so he kind of sounds similar to where I probably would have, pivoted if I grew up in a clubhouse. I'd be like, well, I know I can't play. I'm not good enough for that, but I want to stay in this game. And
what a fascinating family, though, for dad to be a clubhouse guy and then his sons to both become general managers. How cool for him. Never in his wildest dreams working as a clubby in Arlington did he think that his kids would be general managers of Major League Baseball teams.
Exactly. Yeah, so his brother is the GM for the Angels, and they asked him about that too. And of course, they have a sibling rivalry. Zach was talking about how he has a chipped tooth because his brother body checked him into a pole by the basketball hoop at home when they were kids. And, that's just the way it is. That's the way they are. And so it'll be interesting if there's ever a discussion in trades between the two, or both of them are going for the same players,
Mike Trout, come on down, please.
Yeah, right.
Please.
It would have been really funny if he was the GM for the Mariners because of the trade history they've had the last few years. And the Giants and Mariners have like a highway between the two. But pretty cool.
They're guys like Farhan. He's got a giant ego.
Oh, the Seattle guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And by the way, his brother's name is Perry, and he's been the GM there since November of 2020.
21? 20.
Yeah, it says right here, 2020. So, look, I don't know enough about the guy to know if this is a good move or not. And we were joking around about bringing back Brian Sabian last show. We're like, maybe? Not that was anything serious about it. But look, it's fresh blood, but he's been in the system for 6 years, so he's familiar with the player development. He's familiar with the front office, and so he's not coming in, totally out of the cold. And he seems like he's highly, well regarded. I mean, Buster Posey, again, Zach was telling the story on MLB Hot Stove, and they said, how did this happen? Like, how did you get into this position or whatever? And he said, I've been with the Giants since 2018, and from afar, I saw the end of Posey's playing career the last 2 years, and really admired the way he played. But we never interacted because I don't like, when I work in the front office, I don't like to interact with the players. They do their thing, I do my thing. Like we don't like become friends or anything. But he said once Buster came back into the organization, they started talking and they got to know each other a little bit. And I mean, to me, just personally, it sounds like they just kind of maybe jived. They were on the same page. Maybe they had some good conversations, and Buster maybe just said, hey, you know what? This guy thinks the way I do, or maybe he thinks differently than I do, and I want different perspective, right? I don't know which, but whatever he did, Buster took a liking to. And he said he got a call from Buster one day, and he said, hey, you want to interview for the job, for the GM? And he's like, what? It was something he did not expect. So he said it kind of came out of left field, but it was a chance of a lifetime. He jumped at it. He got it, and he's really thankful to the Giants and Buster Posey. So Buster likes him for some reason. And I haven't heard all the interviews with Buster yet to see what his reasoning was.
Yeah, you gotta hope though it's not all like sunshine and roses.
Yeah,
I hope these two guys are taking a cold, hard look at the organization and saying, where are we failing? Where do we need to improve? And don't just have their own bias about what it is they've seen. And with Zach making that comment about not wanting to get chummy with the players, it totally reminds me of Moneyball. And what's that guy's name? Not Leo DiCaprio's friend, the assistant GM guy.
Oh yeah, the pudgy guy. He was playing.
I can't remember. Jonah Hill. That's
Jonah Hill.
He was. He didn't want to get close to the guys because it made him harder to do his job.
Yep.
And I could see how Zach might have that same approach. So I hope though that they do take the time to take a look at every aspect of the organization, because we'll talk about a couple hires now, and you got to hope that came from like a clean slate perspective, instead of just trying to like get the old gang back together. And I hope that they're looking at it that, but we're not going to know for a little bit. So, Zach's a fine choice, I'm sure. If the guy knows the organization and people around baseball respect him, what the hell do we know any different,
Yeah. I mean, I think we have to understand that as fans, we're going to be familiar with some of the people in the Giants organization and some of the main players and potential candidates that were GMs before or assistant GMs before from other teams. We are not going to be privy to the information and the relationships between everyone in the front office, right? There's so many people involved that there are potential several candidates within each organization with names we've never even heard of. I mean, I'll ask you very honestly. He's been with the Giants for 6 years. Had you ever heard of his name prior to this?
Never, not once.
Me neither.
When he got hired as GM, it was the first I ever knew this guy worked for the Giants.
Never even heard of his name. I'm sure he was on the website if you looked at staff or front office. Yeah, probably sitting right there. But do you know the whole front office? Nope, we certainly don't. So this is something that I think fans are like, who's this guy? But it doesn't mean that he's not well regarded within the Giants system. So let's hope Buster. He seems to have a knack for a lot of success in his life regarding baseball. Let's just hope that this was the right call as well. This past week, actually just yesterday, the day before, Randy Winn was just named vice president of player development. So, obviously he was with the Giants for 5 or 6 years. I actually liked following him. He was a good little player, and he's just a little bit younger than me, so we're kind of the same age, so kind of simpatico there. And he's been doing Giants, pre and post on NBC Sports Bay Area the last couple of years, and he brings good insight. He has a good eye for the game, and I think this is a fine choice. But this will be interesting to see if Buster does move in this direction of hiring a lot of former Giants players in these roles. Obviously, he never played with Randy Winn. Close, not that far away, to be honest. But, you have your JT Snows and Rich Aurelias hanging out there, and I'm wondering if they're going to be hired for similar type positions in the system. But I think Randy Winn's a fine choice. I think he has a good baseball IQ and has a calm demeanor and is a good eye for talent. So anyway, we'll just see how this goes, because I certainly am not the one to grade this pick, but it feels okay to me.
It's fascinating, though, that we're not getting, as much as you mentioned, like with a Randy Winn and a possibility of a Snow and Aurilia and just people that are out there. As far as they're kind of Giants retreads, as far as they're coming back to the Giants, but they're not retreads in these jobs and these roles.
No.
So, it makes it kind of interesting. I'm just like, I'm full of questions, and not in a negative way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious to see what happens. It's nice to be in this position for once, because for years we've been angrily screaming, we need to upgrade here, we need to upgrade here. And while the Giants have plenty of holes and need to upgrade, like, apparently, Buster's willing to trade away people like a Yastrzemski, guys he played with, if he needs to do that. So, that's a good sign when it comes to this stuff. So, I think even though they're bringing some names that we might know back into the fold, they're bringing other names we don't know, but we don't know the approach they're going to take yet. Winn, I have no idea if Winn's going to be a good choice. I think Kapler was the Dodgers was in that role, and he took that on after also broadcasting. So who knows if this is a pathway for Randy Winn to get into front offices more or something like that. So, as long as they work well together, that's all I care about.
He does have a job ahead of him, though. Baseball America has ranked the Giants farm system 20th in the league. So, I mean, we know this, Eric. Giants fans know that they just don't have a strong farm system. And it seems like at this point, with 6 years of Farhan, we should have, right?
Yep.
And that's what's frustrating, because Farhan, number one, didn't do a lot of trades, and he didn't get rid of our top talent. And so he drafted for 6 years as well. So they didn't lose really any of their best talent. They should have only gained more talent. And it just seems like they didn't. It's still ranked in the bottom third. So, yeah, I think the autopsy on Farhan's tenure with the Giants is not a good one.
No.
Cause of death, lack of performance, right? Didn't execute promises. Didn't build the farm system. Made the playoffs only one time, losing seasons the other 5, except for one 500 season, right?
The farm system is really what got my goat. You can kind of see it the last couple of years. You're like, well, wait a second. By now, we should be seeing the fruits of some of these decisions, and we're just not. Andrew Bailey, Gold Glover Andrew Bailey, is Andrew Bailey. Patrick Bailey, Gold Glover.
I was like Andrew Bailey. There was a pitching coach.
Former
Similar
pitching
name.
Coach, yeah. But yeah, Patrick Bailey's like the only one that they kind of drafted and developed. I can't think of many others. We always had these promises that pitching was going to be fantastic. And while Kyle Harrison is decent and Tristan Beck was okay, and, we got Hayden Birdsong, none of them, did anything. Logan Webb's from the last organization. Mike Yastrzemski grew up in a different organization. It's just all these guys that were taught and learned under other people are the ones that really are thriving, and none of Farhan's came out. So that's what it like you said, being 20th, there's only one way to go with the farm system, and it's got to be up. And I mean, like, we hear good things about Bryce Eldridge. That's going to be the one that Farhan did pick. That's going to come through for the new new generation, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse more, but you and I were really on the Farhan train in the beginning, and I was still giving him passes after year 3 and even after year 4. But when it got to year 5, that's when I started to kind of take a step back and go, all right, maybe this isn't working out. And now in year 6, this past year, I was definitely off the train, was hoping that this would be his last shot that would succeed, because on paper, what they did in the offseason, they finally spent money, right? And we thought, okay, they finally committed a lot of money. They got some good players. Let's see what happens. And it just didn't work out, mostly because of injuries and some lack of performance, like with Jorge Soler. And
he's all I can think of.
Yeah. Obviously Blake Snell had an incredible year, but he missed the first, basically two and a half months. You had, Jung-Hoo Lee, again, looked promising. He had flashes and then goes down for the year. So, some of those things are out of Farhan's hands. I get it. But, it just, the whole season didn't work out. And in August, I think it was August or so, when Blake Snell was kind of in his groove and Birdsong was doing all right and everything. And when Farhan in that press conference said, I think that we have the best rotation in baseball, that's when I checked out. That's when I said, never mind. When he traded,
that GIF from Naked Gun where everybody slaps their face?
Yes.
And it cuts from scene to scene to scene of everybody just slapping their forehead. That was that moment.
Exactly. I remember, it's funny, you hear a million press conferences all the time. I remember I was driving home from work on backcountry roads going to this unusual place, and I was listening to the press conference live in my car, and I basically let go of the wheel to slap my forehead because I was like, what are you smoking, dude? Like, I was on your side, and you've lost me, man. You have lost me when you say that, because that's when they traded Cobb to to the Guardians, and it was like, no, we're gonna need him, and no, we have the best pitching in baseball. They said, well, what if someone gets hurt? Well, yeah, if that happens, we'll have to address it. It happened, and I was like, dude, come on, man. Anyone could see this coming. Like, what the hell are you thinking? Anyway, so he's gone. We got a new GM, new VP of player development, obviously new baseball operations president. So, those are all great things, but it's hard to turn around a team in 1 year. So we'll see how the offseason goes, and especially when we get all the way to our preseason, kind of season preview episode where we do our picks and everything. That's months and months and months away. So a lot of things can change. But I do have to temper any excitement that may happen with any signings this year with what happened this past season. It just kind of go, look what happened last year. Well, it didn't really improve the team.
Before we move to the actual product that was on the field this past year and the awards and such, there was that article came out that said that the Giants are not necessarily going to be payroll slashing, but that they are going to be cutting back possibly on payroll. Mm-hmm. I want to know, do you think that means that they're not willing to go after a top tier free agent this offseason? Or if somebody shows interest, would they still be willing to? Juan Soto is obviously a big get, but I mean, like, are they still going to go after like a Willie Adames or a Christian Walker or somebody like that? Or is it really scaling back and they're going to try to build from a little bit? I mean, what do you think is going to happen here? Because that's kind of concerning when your team says we're going to cut payroll a little bit. And I get it, you're under a new regime, but I mean, do you think this prevents them from going after bigger names?
It doesn't, but if they did get a big name, they get no one else. And so how much does that really help the team? If they were to land someone like a Soto, I mean, they're talking, $50+ million a year for 10 years. It could be even $600 million for 10 years. And that's just money I don't want the Giants to spend. I know Soto's young and he potentially has those 10 years that most of them might be good. But if they're actually trying to cut salary a little bit, cut their commitment a little bit, that seems to me to hamstring them if they follow through but they do sign Soto. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good get. On the other hand, if they don't get Soto, which they won't because they never do get the big guys, they just don't, Eric. Come on, we all know this.
I don't even think they should go for him.
No, I don't either. I think I don't want them to even talk to him. I guess they already have for the optics, right? Like, I don't care about the optics. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're trying to do it so you can tell your fans, and I'm not saying this is Buster's MO. This was Farhan, I think he talked to a lot of players just kind of going, well, we need to make the fans think that we're serious about this. And maybe they were most of the time, but it just felt disingenuous sometimes. I guess I got to give Buster the benefit of the doubt. You know, he's the guy that got the Matt Chapman deal going and the extension going. And, you know, he obviously is motivated to get these guys. So I'm sure he wanted to talk to Soto, but, you know, convincing him to come to San Francisco when he's got better places to go, better chances to win a World Series. He wants to win a championship, and he was close, right? He got to the series with the Yankees. They just got owned by the Dodgers. And so he's a guy I could see going to L.A., man. Like, I hate to say it. It pisses me off. What's that?
I think he stays. I think he sees New York, and he sees him and Judge and Stanton, and the fact that they could go down as like legends if they win a couple World Series.
No, I agree. I think they could be the modern Murderers Row if they win a couple of World Championships. And, you know, he looked like he was having a great time, always doing those leaping, you know, chest bumps and fist bumps with both of those other guys. And he was protected from behind the order. He had just a remarkable year. So no doubt, I think chances are he stays in New York because New York will overpay for almost anyone. They eventually did that for Judge. We all know what happened there. He used San Francisco as leverage, and New York got a little bit scared and went, okay, we'll pay you whatever, $40+ million. And he's like, okay, thank you, that's right. And it goes back to New York. So,
well, I don't think we'll be used as leverage as much going forward.
No, that was a different story because he grew up a Giants fan and all that stuff.
Well, it was also easy to leverage with Farhan because Farhan's main goal was to orchestrate and optics and things like that, whereas Buster seems more of a straight shooter.
Yes.
And so he's not – I mean, I can really see him being the type to say, Scott, don't screw around with me. I don't want to have this meeting if there's no chance of me signing this player. But I can't see Farhan saying that to Scott Boras. But Buster Posey, I can absolutely see saying that.
Yeah, just don't bullshit me. Totally.
Right.
No, I'm with you there. I heard that same thing too, which is a little concerning that they're going to start – or they want to cut salary. And it's like, okay, well, good luck. Godspeed. We're going to use the farm system, apparently, the 20th ranked farm system.
I mean, they did a good job of getting rid of Soler, thankfully, so that helps with it. But, like, if they want to go after a Santander for another outfielder or, you know, first baseman like Walker or even like Alonso, you know, I'm wondering if they're even going to entertain those conversations or not. I guess we'll find out if they do sign anybody.
Yeah. You alluded to it earlier with Patrick Bailey winning the Gold Glove. We also had Matt Chapman winning the Gold Glove as well, which was not a surprise. Watching him this year was incredible. But, you know, Patrick Bailey also had one of the best pop times in the league, threw out a high percentage of runners, framed really well. He had the most defensive runs saved for catchers. He really was excellent. It was disappointing to see his offensive production really decline throughout the year. I hope that's not a long-term trend. Because, look, a team will always value a very defensive catcher, but a lot of times those defensive catchers are the backups. You know what I mean? They're not always the primary catcher. I'm not saying he can't be a primary catcher. Of course he can.
He will.
I just expect more production from his offense. I just really hope. I mean, I'm happy with, 240, 250, 15 bombs, 70 RBIs, right? That's fine for his position, is because he brings so much to the table in terms of handling the staff and his good defense. But I think the way when he came up, we saw flashes. We were thinking this guy was going to be a 290 hitter, 20 plus with 80 or something like that. And I don't know, maybe he's not that guy, but he certainly is a hell of a defensive catcher. And then Matt Chapman, of course, we all know what he can do. This is his 5th Gold Glove. It was the first time the Giants won more than one since 2021, any Gold Glove since 2021 when Crawford did. And the last time the Giants had 2 or more was 2016 when Crawford, Panik, and Posey all won the Gold Glove. So, crazy. But that's good.
Totally deserved by, Chapman, his play of the year, the signature play to me was the one to end the Mets game in
the
New
Mets
York.
game. That was insane. Yeah.
Like the Giants put out a supercut of, his best plays of the year. And during the minute and a half video, the whole time, all I'm thinking is, you have to end this with the Mets play. You have to end this with the Mets play. And it, of course, ended with the Mets play. And I was very happy to see that because, Chapman was fun to watch. He makes spectacular plays. Sometimes he screws up some routine stuff, but
He can.
doesn't seem to be an issue. And Patrick Bailey, he just reminds me of guys from the 80s. He's just one of those dirt dog kind of guys, gets behind the plate. And if you get some offensive production from him, that's awesome. I think the goal is to not try to rely on him for offensive production. And then anything he gives, is just a bonus. It'd be nice to get 15 bombs a year. But, if the guy hits like 9, 10 bombs, hits like 25 doubles and, keeps it around 230 even, I think that's serviceable for me. That's all I need from Patrick Bailey. He can bat 7th or 8th in the lineup.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So, but it's cool to see 2 Gold Glovers. I mean, you almost wonder, back in the day, what was it, Panik, Crawford, and Posey. Panik, I wasn't even sure was, no offense to the guy, just as deserving as maybe some other players. That seemed like a reputation thing. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see a young guy like Patrick Bailey get it. And Chapman, that is a reputation thing. That guy's going to get the Gold Glove now. He passed Arenado for National League supremacy. It's Chapman's in the National League to lose from now on.
Sure. No, I agree with that. He also, this is Chapman I'm talking about, he had 17 defensive runs saved, which was best among third basemen, but it was also tied for 4th most in the majors regardless of position, which is pretty good. He definitely saved a lot of runs. And Bailey is the youngest Giant at age 25, tied with Joe Panik in 2016. He was also 25. Matt Williams in 91, Bobby Bonds in 71, and Jackie Brandt in 59. So not too often a young Giant wins it, but pretty good. So I could go on about all his framing stuff, which really doesn't matter to fans too much, but he's very efficient in all of that. Also, just wanted to say, if you've been living under a rock, Snell, of course, officially opted out of his contract, which we all saw coming and we knew for months. And do you think there's a snowball's chance in hell the Giants are going to re-sign him?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a snowball's chance in hell. That's about it.
Literally a snowball's chance, huh?
Right. I think when you look at 0.00001%, I think the Giants do have that. But I can see Snell. I can see Snell going to a contender, a ready-made contender.
Yeah.
Somewhere where he feels comfortable. I honestly, I could see him signing with like LA. I wouldn't be shocked. But
I know.
Yankees is also a decent option. Baltimore is a team ready to make the leap. Cleveland, there's a lot of options out there for Snell, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was frustrating because, again, one of Farhan's things is the 1-and-1 option kind of deal. And it's like, if they do well, they're gone. If they don't do well, they're stuck. Look at what Robbie Ray did, right? He had a tough year, and he came off Tommy John, and he had a good game, then he had a bad game. He had a good game and a bad game. He's not going to get more money on the open market. So he's staying with the Giants. He declined his 1-year option, right? So we have Robbie Ray next year. Blake Snell starts the season on the DL, comes off, just gets bombed his first 4 or 5 starts. We're like, well, maybe we'll have him next year and he'll bounce back. And then he was like, no, I'm going to bounce back right now. And then, of course, he proceeded to basically run the table, for lack of a better term, as a pitcher. He just, he had his no-hitter, of course. And then he was incredible. His ERA was near 1, just over 1 the rest of the year after he came off the IL. So that obviously was going to earn a lot of money from someone, more than the 30 or 31 he was making with the Giants, or would make with the Giants next year. So he's probably going to be north of 40, and they're looking for a long-term deal as well, not a 1-and-1. He did say that he's not going to make the same mistake and wait that long, because that really did affect his training and his preparations for the season, and we saw the results of that. So, look to him to make that commitment maybe a little bit earlier. That is, of course, if a team throws a good deal at him. But I personally, just like you, of course there's a chance. It's just 0.001%. Especially, again, referring to the cutting of the budget a little bit. I don't see the Giants doing that. They're not going to make a big commitment to Blake Snell. And although he is a very, very good pitcher and one of the more elite pitchers, and he surprised both you and I a little bit this year. But at the same time, you look at the longevity of his career. Yes, he has 2 Cy Youngs. And and now a no-hitter, and I'm not saying I wouldn't want to have him on my team. But at 45, whatever $1 million a year for a guy who rarely gets past the 6th inning and seems to have a little nick here or there every year, it's scary, especially for a long-term deal. Long-term deal just seems like a very bad idea. So although I would love the Giants to have him for the next year, maybe 2 years, the prospects or the thoughts of signing him to a 5 or 6 year deal, the back end of that deal is just going to be absolute crap. And you don't want to be paying a guy $40-50 million a year for nothing. And it's not worth it. Especially when the Giants aren't going to be that much better next year. Could they make the play? Yeah, of course, but
use those resources elsewhere. I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, Robbie Ray did not opt out. Then Wilmer Flores did exercise his option and will be with the Giants next year for $3.5 million, unless the Giants, of course, cut him. They could just cut him and eat the $3.5 million. We'll see what happens there. I mean, I think there might be a little bit of loyalty to Flores, especially with Buster having played with him and everything. Yeah. And it's $3.5 million. And if they reasonably think he's healthy, he's a great experienced bat. He plays multiple positions. And 2 years ago in 2023, he was the best hitter on the team. So I can't say no to the guy. I think you keep him on.
Right. I love Wilmer. Keep him as long as I don't care if he's the 6th man.
Yeah.
The 26th man. I absolutely love Wilmer. I want him to hang around. If he wants to retire a Giant, if he wants to retire a Giant, let him. I see about 2 more years left in him.
Plus, I'm just saying, $3.5 million in today's baseball. That's nothing. It's not quite the minimum. It's not that far above the minimum, to be honest, Eric. Like, for example, they paid Blake Snell $30 million last year. It's like, okay, that was like 8 Wilmer Floreses. 8 or 9 Wilmer Floreses. So, I think that's money well invested. He's a great bat off the bench. He's got pop. He plays multiple positions. He's a good clubhouse guy.
Clubhouse presence. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I think they keep him unless, again, something about his health pops up that they're just not comfortable with. Other than that, I think he makes it through spring training and ends up on the roster. But yeah, I
think it's probably. I think in spring, Wilmer's probably frozen solid, on the side of the yellow brick road somewhere, and he's screaming oil, because he's like the Tin Man when he moves, and so they kind of start thawing him out in February and March. Wilmer will be loose by April.
Yeah, that's the way I warm up for my workouts, by the way. It takes me a long time. I get that WD-40 out and I'm spraying it in my joints. Yeah, I know how he feels, man. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of deadlift this morning. I had my back. Whew, boy, I had to warm that up. That was rough. Gosh, since the Dodgers won, I think that's pretty much it for Giants news. I don't know if you had anything else that came across the wire. Life has been crazy. Obviously, we know what happened in the nation, and we won't dwell on that. But just a lot of personal things going on. Eric's had a lot of personal stuff with work and other things going on, so we do apologize. But I'm still following the Giants as closely as I can, and we certainly will be coming to you every 4 weeks throughout the hot stove or whenever something big drops. And so, I personally want to upgrade our equipment. And again, just to remind everyone, we're not making money off of this. We never really started a Patreon or asking for money or anything like that. I'm just trying to, we're all just trying to fund this from our pockets. But I do want to get a little bit more of a regular schedule, a better studio, go back to video perhaps. There's a lot of ideas we have, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well, because the numbers are still strong, and we love your support and appreciate the fact that you're still listening and commiserating with us in this team, because there's no doubt that when the Giants are better, the numbers go up. When the Giants are worse, the numbers go down a little bit. People's interest peaks and drops with the success of the team. So I'm sure, any Dodger podcast that's been going on for, 5 or 10 years is probably doing a little bit better right now. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, our interest peaks and wanes depending on how the
yes,
Giants
it does.
Well,
it's just natural. Yeah, it's just human, emotion. It's just how we operate. So, no, that's all good. But yeah, I think that was about it. I don't know about you and Giants Chatter. I haven't seen you guys do a whole lot lately. So do you have any plans coming up soon?
No, we're about to drop our 15 top 15 free agents and where we think that they're all going to land.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be coming out shortly in the Facebook group because we're currently changing platforms for websites, so we're doing everything through Facebook right now. So look for that. We all make our predictions and stuff. Last year I had my high watermark of 2 out of 15 predictions correct. This is the 21, 22, 23, 24. This is the 4th year of doing this. So hopefully I can improve on that, but I doubt it. And Giants Chatter Facebook, join the group. We're still talking stuff during the off season, and there's other pods there. The Say Hey podcast with Doug and Rob. There's the Pitchers. Oh my God, what is Brooks's podcast called? The Pitchers. Oh my God, he's gonna hate me. I'm trying to plug his podcast. The Pitchers Park podcast. I think that's what it's called. The Pitchers Park podcast. I just downloaded it. Pitchers Park podcast with Brooks Knudsen, and Jeff Young. They're also a good listen as well. Yeah. And then I'd love to plug anything Steven Risotto's doing, but nobody knows where the hell the kid is. He disappeared and is just busy working, so I won't plug him. So Giants Chatter over at Facebook for that kind of stuff. And you can follow me over on Blue Sky now. I'm starting to make the trek. It's the same handle, 2 Out Hits. So if you're on Blue Sky, I am starting to move over. I'm going to still use Twitter for the time being for quite a while, I'm sure, because it's still the place to be. But not knowing the future of certain things, I've moved over to Blue Sky. So if you want to join me, we'll get TortureCast set up there at some time as well and get going, because it looks like it's starting to gain some legs finally.
Yeah, I know there's been efforts like this in the past. There was Mastodon, which really didn't take off, and some others. So we'll see if Blue Sky takes off. I personally haven't signed up yet just because I really just stopped using Twitter for what it has become, unfortunately.
I had signed up for Blue Sky months and months ago. I didn't even realize it. So when I tried to create an account, they're like, that account name is taken.
You're like, what?
Well, that's gotta be me. So I went and I tried 3 different passwords, and I guessed my own password on the 3rd try.
Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, no, I need to check it out. Yeah, it's funny how social media was, I'd say a lot more active for a lot of people on certain platforms a few years ago, but things have changed. Things have shifted into ways that maybe people didn't fully expect, and some people like, and a lot of people don't like. And I'm on the latter, so we'll see if Blue Sky could be a good place to go. I know I check out Threads sometimes, but that's a little wonky. So anyway, we'll move on from there and see if another replacement can come out. But that'll do it for episode 308 of the TorchCast. Like I said, we'll be back within a 4-week range. It's really going to depend on when news breaks for the Giants, and then when Eric and I and/or Willie can get together to discuss said changes. And there's other ideas I have as well. We always wait till we have at least 2 of us to talk, and unfortunately with schedules and things that pop up, that can be problematic, and sometimes it goes days or longer till we can sync up. And maybe this would be a good reason to, when news breaks, something big like someone signed or a trade or whatever, one of us just hops on just by ourselves and just records 5 minutes of their thoughts, puts it out there, at least get the ball of discussion rolling, get our thoughts out there in the ether, instead of talking about a trade that happened 2 weeks ago. Right. So, well, maybe we'll have some ideas on that too. But like I said, I might be up in I've renovated my office. It's much nicer now. I can flip things around and do some video production here with some green screens and monitors and lights and everything. So I might look into doing some little, video summaries, video highlights, video something or another. So we'll look to see if that'll happen in 2025. Anyway, thanks all for your support and listening, and we'll see you next time. Until then, have a great holiday season. If we don't see you before Thanksgiving, boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.